Hello my friends, family, esteemed colleagues. I spoke about itchy skin before, but the same question keeps coming back. So I thought a short video about it. I remember that skin problems are a result of toxicity. And the toxicity could come from the outside, like poison ivy, for example, or it comes from within, carried through toxic blood. And this is the type of toxicity that is misunderstood. And many different names of different diseases have been invented depending on the symptom, where they show up and how they appear. And always the culprit ends up being unknown, or it is being pasted to some genetic problem or autoimmune reaction, which, especially the last one, is completely bogus. And genetic problem, well, it happens in a family because of same circumstances, being it the same food or same environment. Now, the toxic blood affects us the most. Now again, experts argue, well, toxicity, show it to me. We don't see any toxicity in the blood. Well, because we are not looking for it. And remember, toxicity is just out of whack frequency. And nobody is checking frequencies. Well, nobody. We are checking. Now there are more and more instruments made for this. One of the earliest known presented to public were the Russian sonars. But otherwise, in medical school, this is completely being ignored because now we know that medical schools are actually training doctors how to create the disease, especially how to make a benign syndrome or symptom a chronic issue. It's all done through suppression of cleansing. Different parts of the skin are going to be affected also depending on different frequencies, which is causing this problem, toxic frequency. I had a friend in Croatia, and she had a problem with itchy fingers, and only some Chinese cream would relieve this itch. Now, and that cream was like 99 different plants involved in it. Obviously toxic. So with applying toxicity to prevent the cleansing of the blood through the skin. Same we achieve if we put steroids. So we put some steroid cream. So this is again patch. Of course it's going to be reappearing because we are not dealing with a culprit, which is a toxic element in the skin. And it gets there through toxic blood. Now, why is one particular part of the skin, in this case fingers, hand? Well, because of frequency. Resonates with this frequency. Now, during my cleansing process and I'm cleansing again. Cleansing is a continuous process, if you allow it. At one point, me and my wife had also same problem, itchy fingers, and actually bubbles would appear between fingers, especially like in this area, and they would itch, would get inflamed, almost like looking like, we would say, herpes. Okay? Of course, it's not virus. It is symptom created when toxic plasma is being trapped underneath the skin. Of course, the skin inflames and becomes reddish, and the more it inflames, the more it itches. And then you scratch it, it bleeds, you get the toxic plasma out, but still, you know, it's very uncomfortable. And how do we stop this itch? Well, we can do it without poisoning our body by exposing the itchy part to high heat. So what I do, for example, when I use the Dr. Beck's blood electrifier, the pulsar, sometimes I have no reaction on my skin, but sometimes the skin starts itching. And then if you scratch it, as soon as you touch it, it itches more. Why it itches more when you touch it? Because the itching is created by increased pressure through inflammation. Toxins are building up here, and body is trying to solve the situation by putting more water in the cells, more plasma in the cells, so they can flush. And this creates increased pressure of the tissue, which makes a pressure on sensory nerve. More pressure is applied, more itchiness appears, until it's such a high pressure that it starts hurting, and that's when pain shows up. So now, if you are already having inflamed skin and it's itching, every touch is creating more pressure, more itchiness. And you feel little relief when you scratch, because you increase and relieve the pressure. So when you are scratching, you feel like blessed feeling, because itchiness comes and goes, and the goes is a relief, which relieves the itchiness. But what I do now, whenever I have this problem, I put a stove, I have a gas stove, I put the stove up on minimum flame, and I put my wrist as close to the fire as I can take it. And then when it starts really burning, then I just move it up a little bit, and I try to keep it there. And then all of a sudden the itchy part starts itching more and more, and then the itchiness starts moving, usually in this direction. And then I follow it a little bit to spread it and to detoxify actually. Now, am I detoxifying? Is this increased heat changing the frequency, and this is why it offsets the toxic effect? Or is the heat actually putting the cells in self-defense mode, closing them down, so now they are not inflaming anymore? Could be both. But the itchiness, after you take it away from the heat, itchiness is gone. You can touch, absolutely doesn't itch. Well, I discovered this from the heat because when I was also in a detox, all of a sudden my fingers start to itch, the bubbles as I mentioned. And I put them in a hot water, really hot water, as hot as I could take it. And then itchiness would increase and then go away. So now I know I don't have to now heat up water, and I can just put it over the stove and just bake my head a little bit. and it works perfectly. Now, I heard of this trick, but for a different purpose, from my friend Mike from St. Martin, who heard it from welders, ship welders. There are many welders doing the job, and hot metal, after it stops, cools down a little bit, so it's not anymore red, just disappears the color, but it's still very hot. You don't know that metal is heated, and by accident you can put your hand and now originally what we would do instinctively look to cool the place down, water, something, cool it down. Well, what welders do, because if they do it, then pleaks show up, and they have damaged hand for months. So what they discovered, if they burn themselves, then immediately apply heat to it. So when you burn yourself, immediately put the stove up and put the hand as close to the heat as possible. And again, for about a minute, just play with it, just keep it hot, hot, hot. And when you take it off, no pleaks, no signs, no inflammation, no pain, no signs show up that you have been burned. Again, you are putting yourselves in the defensive mode. So they don't think about trying to cleanse anything or trying to get rid of something, just close down in defensive mode. So, and the pain goes away, and no blistering, no expelling of nothing. Cells are shut down. And when I use this, it could be also with a bite, mosquito bite and itches, put it over heat. So, this is one of the quickest way of stopping the itchiness. Of course, when your whole body itches, well, you cannot heat it up like this. But why would body itch? Again, toxic blood and general inflammation of the skin. And how do we deal with this? Well, detoxify, but try to detoxify not through the skin, but force the toxins out through mucosal tissue and through kidneys. And to do that, you have to be well hydrated. Skin, body uses in a 3rd degree of toxicity of the blood, when blood is really extremely toxic. How does blood get extremely toxic? Because it was unable to detoxify with a primary and secondary cleansing system. Primary being the kidneys, secondary being the mucosal tissue. So it went to the 3rd and the last system, which is the skin. Now why did it happen? Because there was not enough plasma, not enough water for the body to use and to waste. And urination, it's a huge waste of water. And as body is trying to save the water, less water it has, less plasma it has, less water is available, and body starts clinging onto it. And the toxin through glomerule of the kidney, it's getting cleansed, but then the glomerule doesn't empty, doesn't let this out, because it's not trying not to waste water. So again, it's calibrated that it can withstand certain degree of toxicity, So it allows it to build up, and urine becomes darker and smellier. Now, we ignore these things. Then diarrhea sets in because the waste of water in that degree of kidney cleansing is not allowed through mucosal tissue. Mucus is more dense, less water. So you start cleansing through mucosal tissue, which brings you nausea and diarrhea, because this toxic mucus then settles. It can come in your mouth, so you have bad breath and bad feeling in the mouth. It can settle in your stomach, giving you nausea. You may vomit. And it can inflame your intestines and colon, giving you diarrhea. And colon is one of the biggest outlets, detox outlets. But again, it wastes water. So as the plasma in the body, in the blood, diminishes, there is less water that can be used. And the ultimate option, and with it, it raises the toxicity of the blood because it's being less cleansed and more dense. More dense toxic mucus, more nausea. Not only diarrhea, you start puking. This means if you are drinking plasma and you come to the stage that your body has enough water to waste for cleansing through mucosal tissue, and your blood is very toxic, the mucus becomes so toxic that comes out that gives you nausea and you vomit. Now the third stage, when there is not enough water, well, the skin is going to be used for cleansing because it uses least amount of water. And usually in areas where you sweat more, which is the skin folds, if you are a little fat and you have these folds right in between, underneath armpits, in the groin area, belly flap, wherever there is friction, this is where you are going to be detoxifying more, sweat more, and the area becomes more toxic and reddish, itchy, starts getting skin thicker, you have a proliferation going on much faster, scaly skin, this is result. But before this, you have also the bubbles that we call herpes. It's toxin. No virus is involved here. The virus as a microorganism does not exist. This is utopia. So, as we cleanse through the skin, we start showing these problems. Itchiness, rash, inflammation, toxic bubbles. How you can deal with it? Drink a lot of plasma, a lot of water with salt. So this way you raise up the plasma level in the blood. Now the body will have enough water so it can start cleansing through mucosal tissue and through kidneys. And since it has plenty of water, the kidneys are not going to, glomerulus are not going to wait to become very toxic. But since there is no need to save water, water is plentiful, as toxin comes out, it's being expelled. So the urine becomes clear, almost no smell, because it's a small amount of toxicity, but frequent flush out. So toxins are coming out, but are less dense. Still, the strongest detox is going to be your colon. So keeping diarrhea, this is what we want to achieve, especially when we have itchy skin. Because when you get the diarrhea going, then you are quickly lowering down the toxic level in the blood, and there is no more need for these toxins to be pushed through the skin when they can be flushed out through colon. Remember, again, body is electronic robot with sensors, switches, and programming, and it is programmed that the regular cleanse is going through urine, and this is what I call when the toxicity is below the radar. So there is nothing to see, it's just regular toxicity. As soon as it hits above the radar, then the secondary cleansing switch goes on. Okay, it's like in a boat. You have a normal water leakage, let's say through a shaft of propeller, if you have a wet stuffing. So you have a primary pump that basically, as soon as the water goes a little bit up, the float clicks in and gets the water out. But then if there is a problem and now you have a higher leak and this primary pump cannot cope with this because it's not powerful enough, then you have a secondary switch to the auxiliary pump, which is stronger, uses more juice, more electricity, but it's stronger, so get the water out. Well, if you notice that your auxiliary pump is pumping, well, this should be alarm enough that something is wrong, you better fix it. Same with us, when you get a diarrhea and you did not eat anything strange, out of ordinary, but you already all of a sudden have diarrhea, well, your blood is toxic, you are detoxifying, something has triggered a detox process. Again, this something is changing the environment, change of the frequency. Is it from the blood toxicity, that frequency, or is it some outside frequency or some emotional frequency? Doesn't matter. You are pushed into detox, and because of this, you get the diarrhea, because your toxicity is higher. And as long as you can cope with the secondary pump, and no problem. But if the incoming water in a boat is even worse, probably you have a hole, maybe your shaft flew out, and now primary and secondary cannot, then you go into the auxiliaries. An auxiliary in the body is a skin. But as soon as you diminish the incoming water, as soon as you control the toxicity, and the secondary pump can take care of the water, well, the auxiliary tertiary pump shuts down. Same with the body. There is no need to use the skin because it's uncomfortable. It smells bad, it itches, it's red, looks bad. So why to use the skin when colon can handle it? So as soon as you raise the plasma level, you start cleansing with the organs that require more water. And the cleansing is much faster than through the skin, and what happens? The skin stops itching. Because toxicity is not being pushed in that direction. Do not use steroids. Do not use creams. They are toxic themselves. Apply heat if you can. Sauna, especially infrared sauna. But this is all just patch. You need to cleanse the blood. And there is no blood cleansing without plasma. You cannot do it just by drinking water because you are going to dehydrate yourself even more. Remember, your cleansing organs, your glomerule, cannot prevent minerals escaping. So more water you drink, as you urinate, you are losing minerals. And since we have been told not to eat salt, or be very careful and use very little of it, many people take it to the extreme. They just don't use salt. And of course, they are dehydrated simply because body cannot hold the water. It cannot bond to minerals because it will use electric conductivity. And again, body is electric robot. What we call energy is electricity, electric current. So, whatever skin problem you have, relate immediately with toxicity. Toxicity is coming through the blood. Yeah, you can have toxic emotions, but the most important thing is that you cleanse, and you cleanse not only chemical toxins, but emotional toxicity. It's all being cleansed with water, with plasma. And many people who do self-healing protocol, they notice that they dream more vividly because many emotions come to their attention during the dream state. And again, toxins are just frequencies. So if you have problem with skin, any kind of a problem, remember, your blood is toxic, you have to detoxify. Thank you for listening. Till next time, love you all.